Welcome to a tutorial on making simple bouffant scrub caps. I love making things, and right now making scrub caps for people on the front lines in the medical profession is something I can do, and hopefully by watching this is something you feel like you can do too. In medicine, like a lot of other professions, average defaults to male. So most medical caps are made for male type hair. This is just a quick scrub cap to help everybody with poofy hair, with ponytails, with longer hair, to have something to cover them up. I got the idea from a neighborhood message board that mentioned the group Feminem, or women, Females in Emergency Medicine. So I hunted around, found a simple pattern, and this is the one that worked for me. I would just ask that everybody go ahead and download the pattern from this site on Etsy, the Puffy Pixie Style Drawstring Tieback Scrub Hat by a design by Angie. You can draw it out yourself, but really supporting people for the work they do seems right. Please purchase her pattern, and it's much faster to alter a useful pattern than work on drawing a new one. So here's the hat, and I'm going to show you everything you need and everything you need to do to make this scrub hat. In the description, there will also be links to how to make your own bias tape and how to batch sew these hats. But first, let's just start with how to sew one hat. These are the materials you'll need. For each scrub cap, you'll need about 2/3 of a yard of 100% cotton fabric. Quilting fabric, calico, or basically anything that's approximately the weight of a nice cotton sheet. But it needs to be 100% cotton so it can face the cleaning it needs to face. Next, go ahead and wash your fabric on the highest heat your washer will do and dry it at the highest heat your dryer will do. Use a free and clear or unscented detergent. You'll need an iron and an ironing board or a good surface for doing that. Along with that, you'll need your fabric and the pattern pieces taped together. Go ahead, print them out. Pro tip, don't use double-sided printing. Anyway, you'll need some bias tape, fabric scissors, and 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, or even 3/4 inch elastic along with more bias tape possibly. You'll need pins, you'll need thread, and your ballpoint pen. If you've got it, a rotary cutter and a long ruler and a cutting mat will make your life a lot easier. If you don't have that, some modern, very sharp scissors, a good straight edge, and a nice smooth surface will fill in. Go ahead and fold your fabric in half the way it comes off the bolt. The selvage edges, or the ones that aren't cut, go together. Give it a quick iron so the fabric lies nice and flat. This will help the pattern match up better. Lay the rectangular piece so the arrows are on the fold. It's about 6 3/4 inches wide and about 18.5 inches long. The long edge is about 19.5 inches. Unfold this long piece of fabric. You'll notice it's a very wide trapezoid. Draw a line 1.5 inches up the short ends on each end of your trapezoid. On the shorter of the two big sides of your trapezoid, go ahead and make another mark 1.5 inches up. When you're all done, you should have 1.5 inches border around 3 sides of this very long trapezoid. After you've cut out the long piece, go ahead and fold your fabric over the other way so that you just have room for your half circle. This half circle is about 13 inches across the bottom and about 7 inches from top to bottom. And again, make sure the arrows are on the fold. Go ahead and lay the half circle on there, and then above the little dotted line, go ahead and mark out a little bit of a rectangle. This will make it easier to sew the pocket where you're going to put the elastic. When you're done cutting it out, you'll have a circle with just sort of this extra little handle on it. On the pattern piece, there's a dotted line. Go ahead and transfer that dotted line onto the side of your circle that you drew that extra little rectangle. You'll use this to create a pocket when ironing. Now it's time to go and do a little ironing on the circle, the top of the cap. Go ahead and fold it over at the line that you marked, the dotted line on the pattern, and then again fold over just a little bit at the top so you can create that pocket and hide the raw edge. Fold it over again and iron it flat really quickly. Once you finish the top of the cap, let's go to the part that goes around the head. Go ahead and fold that short end down to the line you marked and then fold it over on the line you marked. Then iron it flat. You can do this without ironing, but I'm not that good, and doing the ironing makes everything go a lot faster. Do it on the other side as well. Fold the fabric up along that line you drew along the shorter side of this giant trapezoid and iron along so you're sort of creating the pocket at the bottom. Once you've ironed the pocket all the way down, you'll need to fold the top of that pocket over so you'll get rid of that raw edge. You can try folding it in like I tried to do here, but I'm not that good. So go ahead and just open it up, fold down about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a 1/2 inch, and just iron it down. This doesn't need to be super exact, but you do have to have enough folded over so that you can sew it down later. All right, once you go ahead and iron down to the end, then you can flip up the pocket and just press it down again so it's all ready to get sewn. You need to make one more mark on the pattern. Where are you going to attach those ribbons? If you look on the pattern piece that's marked out, go ahead and open up the pocket, make a mark inside, and that is where you will attach the ribbons when you start to sew your hat. Make sure you flip everything over so you make a matching mark at the other end so there's a place to attach a ribbon at each end of the fabric. Time to start sewing. The first thing that we're going to do is close the pocket that the elastic is going to go into, and I'm just sewing along the outside edge to close that pocket. And here I tack down the corner. I realized I forgot to tack down the first corner, so go back and tack it down. Remember to do it yourself regularly. All right, now it's time to put in the elastic. Measure out a piece of elastic that is about 2.5 inches long. Attach a safety pin to it and then start to feed it into that pocket that you just sewed. Once you get it fed in so the unsafety pinned edge is just at the very edge, go ahead and sew over that. Do one of those sew forward, sew back, sew forward, so it's really tacked on there. Then go ahead and feed that safety pin through the rest of the pocket, and once you can just pull it out the edge, take off the safety pin and then sew over the other end. And now your elastic is attached at both ends. And do that forward, backwards, forward to really attach that elastic strongly. And now you have enclosed that elastic in the pocket and you're ready for the next step. Oh, and this is my consultant. She is best known for being helpful by helping to be helpful. If you do not have elastic, you can also take a 12-inch piece of bias tape, feed it through that same pocket, and just tie it in a little slip knot, and that way it's still adjustable. So you don't have to have elastic to make it. Now it's time to get the bias tape ready to work as the ribbon pulls on your scrub cap. Trim off any ragged edges so you have nice, clean, straight edges. Then go ahead and cut 2 pieces that are about 15.5 inches long. Now comes the tricky part. You need to open up the bias tape and fold in the 2 little endy triangle corners into the center of the bias tape. Fold it back over flat, and then use your sewing machine forward, back, forward to go ahead and sew off the end of the bias tape so there are no raw edges. And finally, now for the real sewing. Go ahead and open up the bottom pocket, and we're going to go ahead and sew the short ends closed so they are all sewed up and nice. Do one end, no need to tack since it's all going to be covered up. Do the other end. Now for attaching the ribbons. Find those marks that you made earlier and grab those 2 ribbons that you just fixed up. Find that sewn triangle end, there it is, and stick it on the outside. The square end that you haven't done anything with, put it over that mark. Go ahead, close the pocket, and then use your machine to tack it down. And again, forward, let's go, backwards, forward. So it's very securely sewn in there. And then go ahead, turn the whole thing over, stick in the other one, square end inside, and attach it securely as well. This is the part where careful sewing comes into play. Go ahead, fold that pocket back over and feel where that ribbon is. What you're going to do is sew the top of the pocket so that bias tape ribbon can slide freely in the pocket. So you have to just sort of feel for it. When you get started, tack the end, 1, 2, 3. And then go ahead and sew along the pocket carefully, making sure you do not catch that ribbon. All right, once you get to the mark where you attach the ribbon, zoom, 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 and then go ahead and do the same thing, carefully sewing over the other ribbon, tack the closure, and make sure you've got it by testing that the ribbon pulls through the pocket. Congratulations. Now it's time to attach the top and the bottom of the cap. But before we do that, there are these little thingies that need to be trimmed. Because you folded things over on an angle, there's just going to be this little bitty bit that's sticking out over the top. So go ahead and trim that off one side and then trim it off the other side. Time to pin and time to pay attention. Because the entire goal is to have no raw edges, we're going to be doing what's called a French seam. So you do what seems wrong first. Go ahead and pin wrong side to wrong side. Look how fast I can go. And when you're pinning, you may get around to the end and find that either the cap is a little longer or the side is a little longer. That's not a big deal. Just go ahead and pleat whichever one has a little too much fabric. So you can pleat over the wrap part, or if you need to, you can pleat the cap part. Either way, it's not a big deal, and the important thing is everything just sort of matches up at the end. Once everything's pinned in place, we're going to go ahead and start sewing. But instead of using a reasonable seam allowance, you're basically going to sew as close to the edges as you possibly can. So we're talking like an eighth of an inch between the edge of the fabric and your stitch line. Again, this seems a little insane, but it'll make sense when we get to the end. So go ahead and just sort of work your way around. Make sure you pull the pins out. You don't want to break a needle. Flying middle, it's never good. Sounds bad. Just work your way around. Then when you get to the end, remember, tack it a little bit. Once you've sewn this insanely narrow seam, and you can see, I mean, it's just super narrow, there's threads hanging off, you're going to go ahead and flip it. So now you have right sides touching right sides. And this is where the magic happens. Go ahead and sort of flatten that seam between your fingers and feel where the end of the fabric ends inside this little pocket you're creating. And now you're going to go ahead and sew approximately a 1/4 inch seam. Go ahead and tack the end once again. You want to make this nice and sturdy. And then just feel with your fingers, making sure that the fabric that you sewed last time is inside this narrow little pocket that you're sewing around. This is what it looks like when you start and you get going. You've created this little pocket to contain that insanely narrow seam. So go ahead and work your way around the hat one more time. But this makes a very strong seam that has no raw edge to fray. And just get all the way to the end and then carefully tack the end forward, backwards, forward. So you have a nice strong ending. And then you can see that the French seam contains that raw edge. And then when you flip it back open, you have a very strong seam, no raw edges, and it is set to be washed a whole bunch of times and not fray. And now, except for all of the little thread trimming, which you can do in front of your favorite Netflix, you have made a cap. And then you can make a lot more caps. So this is the basic scrub cap. These are the first batch that I made. If you need instructions for making bias tape and some hints for how to batch make these scrub caps, go ahead and check out the other videos I have links to in the description. Thanks. Good luck.